Imagine waking up to a tough decision to decide on your own, without waiting for permission from another person who had long been the center of your decisions. This is what is happening in the Sahel region of West Africa, a location that had always been at the mercy of the West, mainly France. Ever since the decision of three nations, that is, Burkina Faso under President Ibrahim Traoré, Mali under President Assimi Goïta, and Niger under President Abdourahmane Tiani to call it quits with the West, a lot has changed. The three revolutionary leaders entered into a new bloc of the Alliance of Sahel States that is willing to change the usual narrative that the three nations had been used to. When we talk about the narrative, someone may think quite hard about what is this narrative that is talking about. When it comes to the Sahel region and certain West African states, they have been under the influence of France ever since gaining their so-called fake independence. When it comes to finance, it is like these nations have not been having their own currency, as their currency has been heavily influenced by France. Now, the three leaders are taking a bold step of coming up with a common currency that is willing to change everything in these three countries. After saying goodbye to the West, what was left is to also set free different sectors that had been under the West's influence. When it comes to finance, mostly currency, you know what happens when you don't have direct control over your own currency. When a country lacks direct control over its currency, it faces potential economic challenges, including difficulties managing inflation, facing trade imbalances, and struggling to attract foreign investment. Without the ability to influence its currency's value, a nation may find it harder to address these issues compared to countries with independent monetary policy. This means that Aes Member states without control over their currency cannot independently adjust interest rates to stimulate or cool down their economies. Interest rate adjustments are a key tool for managing inflation and promoting economic growth. As the three leaders are working hard to stimulate and also revive their long-been lagging economies in West Africa, this is crucial. Under the control of the French Ministry of Finance and the central banks, the member countries of the CFA system do not have the right to keep the full amount of their foreign currency and cannot decide how to effectively use it. As the CFA franc system in Francophone Africa is referred to a tool of French financial imperialism, as the three leaders come out, directly claim these instances, and now that they are working on their various matters without external direct influence, a common currency of these nations marks the beginning of more desired financial freedom. Referred to be more than currency, the CFA franc is an institutional monetary system controlled by the French government, a thing that AES members no longer want to be part of. The CFA in the West African Economic and Monetary Union, called the Franc de la Communauté Financière en Afrique, made up of 8 French-speaking West African countries: Benin, Burkina Faso, Côte d'Ivoire, Guinea-Bissau, Mali, Niger, Senegal, and Togo, has been the common currency ever since independence of these nations. One of the key sources of French hegemony in the global division of labor since the end of the Second World War is its continued control over the former French colonies, that is, the French-speaking African countries. In the face of the new international political and economic environment from the 1970s onward, France intended to use the CFA franc system to perpetuate and consolidate the center-periphery model, the pillar of French imperialism. In 1945, France constructed the CFA franc institution in Africa, using military and political means to force French-speaking African countries to join it in exchange for so-called peaceful political independence. France has used the CFA franc system so that the prices of its imports and exports with the countries of the CFA franc zone and itself are not regulated by the international market, but determined by the French government. This makes it possible for France to purchase raw materials from the countries of the CFA franc zone, at prices far below those of the international market, by making these countries overproduce raw materials and forcing them to buy finished French products at prices of 20–30% higher than those of the international market. This monetary system deprives the French-speaking African countries of their monetary rights, meaning that the member states are unable to finance their development by creating credit. The CFA system creates dependence between France and its former colonies and maintains the accumulation of surplus value, a thing that blocks the industrialization process of CFA franc countries. The AES is also tired of the restriction by France to freely dispose of foreign currency, preventing them from relying on export earnings for the original accumulation of capital used for industrialization. There has also been a situation where the foreign exchange reserves of these African countries are between 95% and 105%, revealing a high capacity to import and invest productively, while being kept on the leash of underinvestment by the policies of the CFA franc. While the claim of the French government directly controlling gold reserves of its former West African colonies is a simplification, there's a historical and ongoing relationship that gives France significant influence over the financial policies of these nations. This influence stems from the CFA franc currency system, where these countries are required to deposit a portion of their foreign exchange reserves, including gold, with the French treasury. Countries using the CFA franc are forced to deposit at least 50% of their foreign exchange reserves in special accounts with the French Ministry of Finance. For years, France has received gold from Mali, uranium from Niger, oil from Chad, phosphates from Mauritania, as well as other rare minerals from the Sahel. The established purchase prices for these minerals are many times lower than those on the world market, due to having influence over the CFA franc. It is therefore not surprising that the former French colonies have long been not able to overcome their misery. Meanwhile, Banque de France holds 90% of CFA gold reserves, making it the world's fourth largest holder of gold reserves. For countries like Burkina Faso and Mali that are among major gold producers in Africa, it is clear how their gold has been not fully utilized due to limitations from the CFA financial system. No mines, no local deposits, yet astonishingly, it holds the fourth largest gold reserves in the world. So, where does all that gold actually come from? These questions are not only asked by the three leaders, but also by a growing list of Africans and beyond. This is why the Aes members' move is part of their broader strategy to achieve greater economic independence and reduce reliance on the West African CFA franc, which is currently tied to the French treasury. This currency will depend on broader economic reforms, including harmonizing taxation, budgets, and trade balances. Undeniably, the alliance of Sahel states is forging its path not through isolation, but through accelerated economic integration and greater control over its development levers. The success of this strategy could redefine the regional economic balance, provided that ambitions are matched by means. Since the three member states' withdrawal from ECOWAS, the alliance has taken concrete steps to accelerate integration. These include the elimination of mobile roaming fees between the three countries, the development of a joint passport, and, on the trade front, the implementation of a unified 0.5% customs duty on imports from non-member countries. These measures reflect a shared ambition to build a solid regional economic foundation.